There's a lot of things that I've done to try to improve my writing, because boy, does it need a lot of improvement. My writing still has a long way to go, but what improvement I have managed can be attributed to a few things, beside the obvious stuff like writing and crystals. If I had to attribute the majority of my improvement as a writer, such as it is, it would be to these 5 things. The first thing I would attribute a lot of my improvement to is taking a reader focused focus. Anytime you write anything, you are inherently biased because you, as the writer, have all the information about the story because you're the one who's coming up with it. There is so much that you know about the setting and the characters and the plot that the reader who is reading your writing for the first time is not going to know. The character you introduced in chapter 1, the reader is probably going to forget who they are if they don't show up again until chapter 4. The fact that Fred and Frank are brothers, probably a fact that's going to have to be repeated a few times before it sticks in the reader's brain. The name of the capital of your fictional empire, probably not something the reader remembers. It is so easy to unconsciously not explain something or not relate some detail when you're the writer, even if that detail would be crucial for reader understanding because you omit it because you, the writer, are aware of that detail. This is a lesson that critique has just repeated for me over and over, time and time again. You cannot take for granted what the reader understands. You have to get into their minds as someone who is reading the work for the first time. Experience with your own stories, familiarity with the plot and the characters can blind you to their complexity. You have to remember that for the reader, all of this stuff is new. This means paying close attention to how you dole out information, when you repeat or give reminders about crucial information, and making sure that you are complete in the information that you give to the reader. Always trying to get yourself more into the head of the person who is reading your writing goes a long way to improving it. Next thing that has really improved my writing is to always write forward. This is a piece of advice that I got really early on, and I think also internalized really early on, and it has been really beneficial. You always want to be moving forward on your writing project, even if it's in the wrong direction. There is almost never a benefit to sitting around and waiting or trying to figure out the best way to approach a scene or to come up with the best idea. You are almost always 99% of the time better served by just moving forward. Just write it. Write the scene, write the chapter, write the part of your novel that's giving you trouble. 99% of the time, the best thing to do is just write the scene, even if it doesn't turn out. Even if you don't know how to approach it or you aren't sure what direction to go. Writing the scene, getting it done is almost always better. Having a version of the scene written is always better than not having any version of it written, even if the version you've written doesn't work. The worst case scenario is you delete the whole thing and start over, which literally puts you back in the place you started, except you'll probably have learned something and you're probably going to be better equipped to actually make progress in the right direction. Always focus on moving forward. Always focus on making progress on your writing projects. Moving forward gives you valuable information and iteration, not to mention that's how you actually get to the end of a project. Next thing that has really improved my writing is reading my own writing. A good chef should always taste the food that they cook, and a good writer should always read their own writing. If you are working on a longer project like a novel, or even just in general as you practice writing, you should be spending a lot of time reading your own writing, especially if it's in a non-writing session context, and especially if some time has passed since you wrote whatever it is you're reading. I think a lot of writers don't like to do this. They don't like to read their own writing. I see this with beginners a fair amount. But I think that the more painful something is to read, the more important it is that you read it and try to figure out why you don't like it. Part of improving as a writer is figuring out what areas you need to improve in. And you really can't do that unless you find the weaknesses in your writing. And arguably the best way to do that is to read what you've written. Now, there is a caveat here because you want to make sure that you're not getting sidetracked into doing a bunch of line edits as you read and stuff like that. Sometimes going back to read an old piece of work can draw us into that piece of work, and then suddenly we're doing a major rewrite on some novel that you wrote 3 years ago instead of continuing to work on the project that you're actually working on. You do not want to read your own writing and fall into a rabbit hole of line editing and revising and making changes to a bunch of stories that you aren't planning to really change. That's when rereading your own work can be problematic. There's lots of ways to avoid this. You can print it out and read it IRL. You can make a PDF version so you can't type or make corrections as you read it. You can duct tape your hands together. Whatever you need to do to prevent yourself from editing or falling down that rabbit hole for something that you don't want to start working on will help you. If you can do that, I think reading your own work is a very necessary and very beneficial activity for any writer. Next thing that has really improved my writing is making sure to find some enjoyment in the writing process. Writing fiction is different from a lot of other types of work because the end result is supposed to be fun, or at least enjoyable on some level. This is true of all sorts of different art forms, not just writing, but it's something that separates writing and other forms of art from different types of work that most people do. If you completely aren't enjoying the writing process, if your story feels like this dreary drudge work that's devoid of any emotional color, then that can be a signal that something is wrong. Writing is not fun all the time. It can be very taxing mentally. There is some drudgery and dreary work associated with it. There's all kinds of self-doubt and negative emotions that crop up throughout the process. But at the end of the day, with your writing, you're trying to make something that's meant to be enjoyed. People love to talk about how hard writing is and how brutal finishing something like a novel is. I do that all the time. But there also needs to be arguably as much joy in the process. If you are finding writing to be really hard, it might mean that you're writing the wrong story, a story that you're not interested in. It might mean that you're using the wrong method to write, or maybe that you're getting too caught up in perfectionism or comparing yourself to others or other mental stuff that's going on. My best writing usually comes out when I'm enjoying myself, when I'm aligned and working on projects that I love. So trying to cultivate that feeling as much as possible can be transformative. And the last thing that has greatly improved my writing is letting go of ego. Don't take this the wrong way, but writers can be some of the most egotistical assholes on the entire planet. From writing group drama that you hear about all the time, to people dumping on certain genres or authors that they think are trash, to people being super defensive about their writing whenever they get legitimate constructive feedback. There are all kinds of ways that ego, either positive ego or negative ego, can work its way into the writing process and cause all kinds of problems for you. Ego will do almost nothing good for you. It will blind you to the problems in your writing and deafen you against the voices that could actually help you to improve. When you get defensive, when your mind tries to concoct some excuse for why you don't need to improve, then you're not going to improve because you're letting your ego tell you these things. Ego comes out when you compare yourself to others, either positively or negatively, if you think you're worse or better than other writers. It comes out when you try to push away any problems in your writing. It comes out even when you don't feel like writing, when you procrastinate or you avoid writing because you don't feel you can do it up to the standards that you want to do it up to. Ego is an internal force inside of you that tries to keep you where you are. Either a terrified small person who doesn't take chances and doesn't believe in themselves, or a delusional blowhard standing atop a mental pedestal that you've put yourself on. You are neither a good writer or a bad writer. You are just you. You are someone who has written a certain amount and will probably write a certain amount in the future. You are someone who writes. When you get the ego out of things, you'll have this clarity, this clearer view on what needs to be done to improve. You will be more receptive to new ideas, and you will just feel less miserable about the entire process. I have taken over the last little while teeny tiny little baby steps towards fixing my own ego and trying to get it out of my own writing process. And the only way I can describe it is liberating. Like, if you think you have to have these walls up around you and getting rid of them will make you weaker, but it really doesn't. I don't think less of myself. I don't think more of myself. I just spend a lot less time thinking about myself. I spend a lot less time comparing. I spend a lot less time trying to defend the fact that I'm a good writer or deny the fact that I'm a bad writer. What I'm doing is spending more time focused on growth and accomplishing the things that I want to get accomplished. Figure out what problems your ego is causing you in your writing and do the best you can to make it as small as possible. Very few other things will improve your writing, like getting rid of your ego. Speaking of improving things, I could have improved the conclusion of this video by actually writing a conclusion, but here we are. So there you have it. I'd love to hear about the things that you've done to help improve your writing in the comments down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.